There's a lot on the line today at the Maverick Center in Salt Lake City, where the nation's best junior gymnasts are competing for spots in next month's national championships. On a stage that has seen some of America's brightest stars, these young competitors look to make their own mark, with eyes on the Paris Olympics just 2 years from now. NBC Sports welcomes you to the 2022 U.S. Classic. Hello everyone, I'm John Roethlisberger, and it is an honor for me for the first time to introduce as an analyst in the sport of gymnastics, Olympic champion Laurie Hernandez. Laurie, it's great to be here with you. We're very excited. But let's talk about the U.S. Classic and what does this competition mean and what can we expect today?
Yeah, so for this junior competition, it is a staple on these athletes' road to Tokyo. Now, this competition is a qualifier to championships this year. And for context, Suni Lee in 2018 scored 5th in the all-around, and then 2 to 3 years later, won the entire all-around for the Olympic Games. So it's an important meet.
It is absolutely. You never know who might be on the floor today that you might see in Paris and beyond. But, you know, we might have just dug up some old footage of one Laurie Hernandez because you competed in the 2012 U.S. Classic.
11th all around. I was so bendy.
And this competition for you in 2012, what did it mean? You went on to the U.S. Championships that year?
I did. I qualified into championships. I was so nervous as a junior, and this competition felt so important to me.
And it was, but you qualified in the 11th spot, right? And then how did those U.S. Championships go?
I scored 21st out of 23 athletes, John.
Hey, but that's, to your point, you never know what you might do, and it doesn't matter where you finish necessarily now because these faces like Laurie might be on the top of the podium someday, so make sure you guys are paying attention at home. Last night in the competition, it was the first round of the JO competition, and your winner, Hesley Rivera, from that session was your top scorer. Now, keep in mind, both of the sessions from last night and today combined for the all-around champion, but right now, she is the gymnast to beat. She had a great night.
She absolutely did. Definitely one to keep your eye out on.
Hesley's from Woga, very well-known gymnastic club. A lot of great gymnasts out of that. Here's your competitors in today's session. Leslie Saltzman will lead things off on bars. Simone Rose, fun gymnast to watch, will lead things off on the vault. But keep in mind the most important number today, 49.5 is the overall score that these gymnasts need to go on to the U.S. Championships.
And we have quite a handful of athletes that still need to qualify into championships, so...
And we'll try to keep you abreast of that situation as we go through the competition today, letting you know who needs to get that score of a 49.5. Lacey Saltzman is one of those athletes. Comes from Texas Dream Gymnastics. What to look for on vault, Laurie?
So for here on vault, we're looking for altitude. We're looking for gymnasts to stay as tight as they can right here. Great landing for Lacey. Obviously, you want to stay in between those out-of-bounds lines. Overall,
one of the more simple vaults, I think, being done today, a handspring front, but done very clean. We're going to talk a lot about difficulty and execution and how that formulates the score, but here's one more look. Am I going to get programmed in any of these other monitors?
Fantastic vault for Lacey. The reason why being she is so tight off that table. If you were to drop a pencil, eraser down onto the floor, it would bounce because of how tight it is. That's what we want to see off the table. We want that tightness, we want the amplitude, and of course we want form. Feet together, pointed toes. You know gymnastics, the works.
We had a fun time talking to Lacey. As you see, her coach, Kim Zemeskel, the first ever world champion for Team USA. But we had a lot of fun talking to Lacey before the competition. We'll talk a lot about her great personality, especially for a young athlete. I think we'd still be in that interview room talking if we didn't have to cut it off.
I think so. She's a really passionate athlete, and it's exciting to see that at such a young age.
So one event done for her. Again, keep in mind, so the average score for 4 events to get that 49.5 for these athletes who need to qualify like Lacey, 12.375, and it's no gimme, but certainly these athletes capable of doing that. So we're going to move over to the next athlete, Taylor McMahon, also from Texas Dreams.
Okay, simple Yurchenko layout for Taylor from McMahon.
So we'll probably look at that again, but that slight pike in the air, and judges, if there's an opportunity for them to take a deduction, as we'll see throughout today's competition and the seniors this evening, they're going to take it right. What do you think they did here?
So over here, we see her land with her head down a little bit. Now, when we're looking at landings, whether that's floor, any dismount you see on all 4 events, we want that chest to be in line with the equipment. So if her chest is facing towards the floor, they're definitely going to take some tenths for that.
Taylor said that she's doing online school, and I have to laugh because I said, do you like online school? And she says, I love it. I don't have to deal with people. It's like a page right out of my own book. So as we're watching the practice leading up to this competition, one athlete that really jumped out at me and is a lot of fun to watch is this young lady, Simone Rose, 14 years old.
Great height on that first release. That's exactly what we want to see when we're seeing these handstands on bars for all athletes. We want their toes all the way up to the ceiling. If they do what we call a short handstand, a handstand at a 45-degree angle, they're going to take tenths off. Fantastic routine for Simone.
Kale Robinson, one of her coaches there in the background, giving her the double high five. Kale, a young coach that's really starting to make his mark, a great technician. And certainly we'll see a lot more from Simone Rose, and you can see why right there. It's just so fun and so just precise and energetic on that event. So she's got her own chalk there, Lori. Is there a special formula that we're not aware of? Did you have your own chalk?
I would bring my own chalk blocks, but typically not my own. I think seeing athletes carry around their own chalk buckets has been a new thing since COVID. We usually all get to share a bucket, but since then, those times have changed.
No more sharing the bucket of chalk.
No more chalk for us.
But there is different chalk, too. I remember when I was competing, you'd go overseas and you don't know what's going to be in that chalk box.
So true. It can be slippery. It can be all types of things, but we like to bring in our own.
Sydney Snyder next up on the vault, just 14 years old. She's here with her twin sister, Audrey. Audrey has qualified to the national championships, and this is a big day for Sydney because she, like her sister, wants to get into those championships, but she has not qualified yet. Important day for her.
Very clean Yurchenko full. We saw a couple of form breaks in the air. We'll notice her feet were a bit flexed, but that altitude from the table for a junior, I thought that was pretty great.
The most difficult vault we've seen so far. We will see a couple other gymnasts doing the double twist, but the full twist in Yurchenko starts from a 14.2, so that's a maximum score she can get on this vault.
Slight pike down at the end. If we notice an angle at the hips, that is unfortunately a deduction.
And that hop, you can see as you're at home and you're trying to be your own judge, which we all are, any hop or step bigger than the width of their shoulders is going to be a 3/10 deduction. If they can keep it smaller than the width of their shoulders, that's a 1/10 deduction. Looked like maybe a 3 there, Lori.
I believe so. And those tenths definitely add up. So you want to keep an eye on that, especially if they're at home.
Now Jayla Hang mounting the uneven bars. Teammate of Simone. Also an outstanding athlete.
Her form is just beautiful. Watch her toes. That toe point is so important. When you can see a junior with great form.
Wow, was that a save? Looked like a save to me.
We like that swing, we like that rhythm, and we want to just see these athletes keep it moving. 3/10 landing, we saw that step past the shoulder width, but overall, I would be very proud of that routine if I was her.
So we saw a little smile on her face as she's walking off the mat. She did the low bar sequence. Now watch right here. Lori, is this a cover right after this kick cast?
I believe so, although her hands were extremely quick, and there is a part of me that wonders if that counts as her full pirouette requirement.
I'm going to go with it was a save and a savvy one for a 14-year-old. Very nicely done.
Absolutely.
Here's a dismount.
Beautiful open-hipped double layout. Again, that 3/10 step at the end.
and talking to some people about Jayla before this competition, and they said she's got great gymnastics, but like most young athletes, and I think you can attest to this, is you got to learn how to compete and learn how to put it together on the floor. And,
Exactly.
and they said if she can do that, she's one to watch.
And you don't want to discount the juniors. Just because they're not in that senior competition, it's still important on their difficulty, on how much they can hit under pressure. The Olympic Committee is going to keep an eye out on that.
Waiting for the scores just to kind of update you on some of the athletes we've seen. 12-9 from Simone Rose for her bar routine. She has already qualified to the national championships. Lacey Saltzman leading off the vault, a 12.3. She does need to qualify. We mentioned the average you need to have is a 12.375. So just a hair behind the average that she needs. Taylor McMahon on vault in 11.75. She was the other Texas Dreams athlete that we saw go. And Sydney Snyder, who's trying to qualify as well, got the 13.05, so she is on track.
One thing we also want to keep an eye out on is, even if you score low on one event, you can make that up on the others.
Jayla Hang scored quickly, 12.7 for her, and she is already a qualified athlete. Now here we go with Peyton Chandler. Beautiful lines.
Those straight legs are stunning. Toes to the ceiling, that's what we like to see. Bit of a form separation there. Small hop on the dismount. Overall clean routine.
I don't know if she thinks she can do it better than that, but as somebody watching, that was about as perfect as I think you can do that routine. Certainly difficulty, something she could add down the road, but on the execution side, not sure we'll see one better than that today.
There's something to be said for going to a competition and hitting a nice, clean routine. Now, the difficulty definitely adds to the wow factor, and of course it ups your score, but hitting a nice routine, a clean routine, when it counts, that matters in the end.
So a simple double tuck dismount, but the execution very nice. Well done from Peyton Chandler. So halfway through this first rotation, already some great gymnastics here in Salt Lake City. Welcome back to the Maverick Center. Peyton Chandler, for her effort, a 12.45 on the uneven bars. You see the execution score of a 7.85. We talked about how clean that is, but to the point we talked about before, the judges find ways to deduct.
Absolutely. They can deduct things like a handstand that's not all the way up to the ceiling, the swing rhythm, if the rhythm is broken, if the routine looks choppy, anything from body position to heights on different release moves, whether that's on the same bar or transferring from one to the other. And of course, connected skills, landings, you name it.
And that's 7.85, that's out of a perfect 10. So that means that she had over 2 points in deductions. And that was a very clean routine. That's how tough it is. So we go with Carly Weinberg out of Buckeye Gymnastics.
Come on, Carly. Come on, Carly. Come on, Carly.
She's got a bit of an angle in her shoulders when she's doing these casts and releases.
Come on, Carly.
Nice to finish. One of her coaches right there, Lewis Robinson, also Kitty Carpenter, who's been part of the Buckeye program for a long time and produced a lot of great athletes out of that gym.
She looks quite relieved to be off the equipment, as we all have felt in the past.
Do you have an event that you used to like to start on or not like to start on? I would think beam, but that's not always the case, right?
I actually love starting on floor. I like pulling the energy with all the adrenaline and then ending on beam and being tired. Here we have her double layout. She had barely a hop at the end. That's going to be a 1/10 deduction, but overall, I think she seems quite proud of that.
Carly does need to qualify to the U.S. Championships here at the Classic. Now Audrey Snyder, she is qualified, and she is really, again, one of those athletes. Keep an eye on. She went to the Pan Am Games recently and An outstanding performance there, and certainly one of the favorites here today in this competition.
That was great height on a Yurchenko full. She had a couple deductions on that landing. You'll notice a large step backwards, even a small hop, so they can pluck a couple tenths of deduction from that. But her height from the table, that's what we want to see. We want to see an extension from your shoulders into your ears right there.
How hard is it for the junior athletes, these smaller athletes on vault, to get the power that you see from some of the seniors? Because they're light, and that board sometimes it's hard to get that energy you need out of it, correct?
Exactly. The difficulty as a junior when you're vaulting is that sometimes that board can feel really tight, so you can't hit it as hard as a lot of times the senior athletes can. And the beginning to a skill, including the entire event of vault, is the most important part. If it starts wrong, it's probably going to end wrong.
So we'll see a lot of the Yurchenko fulls, not as many double fulls from the juniors as you might see from the seniors, but we will see some, and we'll make sure to point those out and how valuable those are as we go through today's competition. And a 13-2, very nice score from Audrey Snyder, again, out of a 14-2. You can see the 4-2 on the left and a 9 in the execution.
So I say that with a bit of awe because it's not often in an execution score that you see a 9-0. So when we do see those, we celebrate.
The Metroplex Gymnastics athlete, Michelle Pineda. She has qualified to the U.S. Championships next month.
Giving hopefully a sense of security when she competes today. Little leg separation at the end there, but beautiful pack salto to the low bar. Nice height and release. That was beautiful.
Big Jaeger.
That form, she's got a great toe point. Comes the dismount. Clean double leg landing, feet together, straight legs.
Smokes the landing.
Wow.
No movement of the feet on that stuck dismount.
So you'll notice there are some routines that are simply just pleasing to the eye. A lot of that has to do with rhythm. So when you see us talking or hear us talking about a rhythm deduction, we're looking at choppiness, we're looking at lots of adjustments in the hands. She had a beautiful rhythm to this routine. One thing bleeds right into the other. That's what we like to see.
Nice double pike. Not a common dismount off of bars, but she did it well, legs together. Looked like a diver coming off that bar.
Smiling a lot after that routine. I would too.
Absolutely. Job well done. And again, she has qualified. And you mentioned kind of a practice meet for some of those athletes that have already qualified, correct?
Yeah, a lot of times classics can be looked at as the quiz before the test when you compare it to championships. But it doesn't make it any less important whatsoever, especially when it comes to the road to Paris.
Carly Weinberg on the uneven bars, waiting for her score. A 10.7. A little surprised. I thought it was a better routine than that, but we see the difficulty, a low difficulty start. And again, the judges, a 6-8 on execution. I see your face, Lori, and you're a little befuddled. We'll call that befuddled.
Yeah, I am a little bit surprised. A 6-8 is quite a low execution score. But again, there are so many little places that the judges know where to look for. They know what they can take, and if they see an opportunity to take a deduction, they're going to do it. They're not going to be lenient, especially with these high-level athletes.
And something important to think about again is as Carly tries to qualify to the championships, a 10.7 is well below that average score we talked about that you need of a 12.375. So she has a little bit of work to do. And now, also a fun gymnast to talk to. I had a chance to catch up with her in training. Nora Christian has high expectations for herself in this sport.
Missed connection there. We saw a straddle. Looks like she went into a stalder, which we saw right there. Leg separation.
fingertip grab and just can't quite control it. Wow.
Slams her toes onto the low bars when she catches. Bring back the 1 point deduction there.
And that is a really disappointing start, I'm sure, for Nora. Talk to her in training, and she is a confident athlete, not afraid to say she wants to be in Paris in 2024, but she will be ready to regroup at the U.S. Championships. She is qualified for those. Man, first rotation, it was a whirlwind. Second one coming up. The 2022 U.S. Classic is brought to you by Prevagen, is the #1 pharmacist recommended memory support brand. American Cruise Line, small ship cruising done perfectly. And by Ufos Recovery Footwear, feel the ooh. Beautiful Salt Lake City, man. You fly into the airport and you look out the window and you're like, wow, what a beautiful place to be. Standings after one rotation. Jasmine Jimenez, 13.5 for her vault. She is your early leader. Audrey Snyder, Annabelle Dewey right behind her. Obviously a long way to go. And that second rotation coming up right around the corner. Welcome back to the Maverick Center here at the U.S. Classic. John Roethlisberger, Laurie Hernandez, and we are joined by the developmental lead of USA Gymnastics, Dan Baker. Dan, USA Gymnastics has kind of created this, I don't want to say monster, but I'm going to go ahead and say three-headed monster. Chelsea Memmel, Alicia Sacramone Quinn, who are Olympic medalists, are part of that team. You're the developmental lead, and I've known you for a bit, and I asked you not that long ago, I said, Dan, what's your best asset that you bring to this team? And I thought your answer was fabulous.
Well, I said you can either say experience or old, whichever one you want.
I'm going to go with old age, if that's okay with you.
That works with me.
Absolutely. You bring that experience, and you work primarily with the junior athletes, or that's where you take the lead, I should say. And here we are at the junior competition, and as we see our second rotation beginning here with Taylor McMahon on bars, just kind of as we're watching the gymnastics, give us a state of the union of junior women's gymnastics in the U.S.
Well, I think we're in a pretty good place. We've had our juniors compete 6 times since last fall. They've won every competition they've been in. They continue to improve, and we haven't sent the same athletes each time, so it's been a different group of athletes each time. So our depth is good, and our quality is good. Now, we're very pleased with where we're at the moment.
Is there anyone that you believe we should keep an eye out on loosely within the next few years, especially on the road to Paris?
Well, that's kind of hard to say. You don't really know what they're going to do when they move to the senior level.
I mean, Laurie finished 11th at the Classic in 2012, so, I mean, you know, anything can happen, right?
Well, I think there's quite a few of them, actually. If you watch these juniors, and I was very impressed last night, their quality of their execution is outstanding. So their challenge is to raise their difficulty and keep their execution as they move to the senior level.
That was Taylor McMahon just finishing her uneven bar routine. Nice job for her there. We saw her in the first rotation as well on the vault, trying to qualify to the U.S. Championships. How big is this for these young athletes to make it beyond today to that U.S. Championship?
Oh, it's very big. Most of these athletes that you're watching on the floor today were Hopes athletes last year. So that's kind of the path they go. They go from Hopes to junior to senior. So every time you can get on the podium and go on the big stage helps your experience as you move forward.
You just got back from the Pan Am Games as well, where the U.S. did quite well. Talk about that experience a little bit.
Correct. Well, if you want to talk about the juniors did an outstanding job. They won every gold medal possible, won all 4 of the events, won the all-around, and won the team. So we're very pleased with the juniors there.
So that's kind of nice to come back to the bosses at USAG and say, hey, how about those juniors down there, right?
That helps.
Are there any bullet point goals that you have for this quad for both juniors and seniors?
Well, I think number one is with the rule changes, we have to really make artistry important. And the little things. We have the big things. We have the difficulty. It's the little things. Staying in bounds in our tumbling, working on our artistry. Those, I think, are our bullet points as we move forward.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Taylor McMahon in an 11.3 with that bar routine. 7.2 in execution. Judges found 2.8 off. She's got some work to do. Again, her second score below that average we talked about that she need to qualify, but 12.375. And now another athlete looking to qualify, Sydney Snyder from First State Gymnastics takes the bars.
That's a 1-point fall on the Rikna. It had humongous height, and it looks like her bars, especially her releases, have a lot of potential just from that skill alone. But let's see how she finishes.
And that is really unfortunate because she did score a 13.05 in her first rotation. Needs to hit today, wants desperately to join her sister at the U.S. Championships.
We're seeing a lot of form breaks on her bars, especially within her handstands. We would technically call this banana back. So when we see an arched back and someone who's not in a straight line, that's something to keep an eye out for. That's a deduction.
And there's so many hidden deductions that you just don't see. So when you see the athlete on the bar moving their hands back and forth, that's a deduction.
Dan, you call this right here. What happened on this release move?
Well, I just don't think she grabbed the bar. She honestly, I think that's just experience and believing that you're going to catch the bar, because technically it was right there.
So it's like the wide receiver. You touch the ball, you catch the ball. Is that the release move adage as well?
Exactly.
Yeah, there is a muscle memory to keeping your hands in a certain grip before you grab, and as a junior, it's just that repetition. She's going to get it.
Correct.
So disappointing, we'll wait for that score on the uneven bars. Moving over to balance beam. Jayla Hang, gymnast that we really enjoyed watching this week, Dan.
She's very exciting to watch.
Little wobbles, but she looks very comfortable up there. Something you'll notice is if you watch a gymnast's ankles while she's doing beam, you can kind of tell where their nerves are at. She seems very sturdy, and that's what we like to see.
So Dan, with this new team that we have with you and Chelsea and Alicia, how is that dynamic between the three of you? I know it's early, you've barely had a chance to all work together, but early on, how does it feel?
Oh, it's great. I mean, we've known each other for a long time. I knew them both as athletes when they were 12 years old. So I've watched them grow from athletes all the way to the great young ladies they are now. So we've known each other for a long time. So I think the dynamic has been excellent.
Love seeing those 3 in a row connections on beam. Every 10th matters.
Yes, it does.
Beautiful round off double tuck dismount. Lots of height on there. What I mentioned earlier on vault, we like to see gymnasts landing with their chest up.
Come on, Peyton, you got it.
Jayla Hang's score, as that was moments ago, 13.2. So nicely done for her. A practice meet of sorts for someone who is already qualified.
Let's go.
But somebody who's trying to make it to the next round. Sydney Snyder just in 11.05. Dan, thank you for joining us.
Guys,
Great
for
to have
having
you
me.
up here.
Thank you.
A lot more from rotation 2 coming up.
Hi.
Welcome back. Christina Shelton started this competition off on the vault with a 12.75. Very good start for her. She is trying to qualify to the U.S. Championships, and this has been a big hurdle for some of the athletes early in this competition, the uneven bars. We've seen some mistakes. This is a critical moment for her.
We're seeing a couple form breaks here. If you look at her feet, they're not all the way extended through the ankle. We like to see a straight line from the shin all the way to your toes. If that doesn't happen, it's considered a flex foot. And we're seeing that quite a bit here. Great double front dismount.
The eyebrows went up.
She caught that first release move a bit on her fingertips. And let me tell you, when you catch a release move on your fingertips, the heart attack is real.
Is that what we would call a little sheepish grin, like she got away with something right there?
I think so. I think it may have felt like a little secret for her.
A tough dismount, though, double front. Don't see a lot of these. Blind landing.
I'd say a 1/10 deduction. That was, overall, I think that was the perfect dismount for her. Every so often you see skills that are simply just tailored to the athlete. It looks like it was made for them, and I think that's what the dismount is for her.
And you know, as Dan got up and left after the last segment, he pointed to the scoreboard and said, an 8-0 is a great execution score. And I think if you're watching at home, keep that in mind, because I think in the old days, you think 8 points out of 10, that's not good. But this is 2022.
Yes.
And the judging is very much different than, we used to see back in the 10-0 days. So an 8.0 or better execution, that's like a 9.8 or 9.9 back in the scale for what a lot of us remember. You're not as old as me, Lori, but trust me, just trust me on that one.
I still got in the 10-0 scoring before I snuck into elite. But yeah, it was quite a while ago. I remember first learning about the scoring differences and seeing how they were going to differentiate execution versus difficulty. I couldn't understand why different athletes were scoring into the teens. But now we notice over the years that's the format that they've used. And I gotta say, it makes a lot of sense. It leads athletes to be individual with their routines, to be unique. And we get to separate them in that way.
What are we looking for on beam, Lori?
Yes, so for beam, we are looking for, of course, balance, no wobbles, what I mentioned earlier, those ankles that shake. We're also looking for excessive preparation for skills. What that means, lots of shifting in the feet, lots of fidgeting before going. That is going to break up the rhythm, which leads me to my next thing, rhythm, artistry. We want to see a proper flow when we do beam routines.
And that can be a little bit of the frustrating part, I think, for fans and people that are watching, because it's in the eye of the beholder, right?
Exactly. Artistry can sometimes be subjective, but we've learned that within this quad, the judges have received a checklist for what to take off. Posture, rhythm, fidgeting, things along those lines.
Michelle Pineda got a 12.0.
Beautiful triple series, no wobbles there, and great form.
Didn't mean to step on that big series right there. 12.0 on bars in her first event. Reminder, she has qualified to the championships already.
For those watching, when I mentioned rhythm earlier, this is an athlete that I think embodies that. We're seeing how smooth she is, how everything just keeps moving. Her beam looks like a breath of fresh air. Reminds me of Kyla Ross a little bit. Slight broken connection there, but she doesn't panic.
I'm guessing staying calm and avoiding the panic on beam of all events would be critical.
That's usually what I think they're aiming for. Ooh, bit of a wobble there. Great height on that side aerial. We heard that bell. That means she's got about 10 seconds to exit the beam. Clean double fold landing. I loved watching that.
From my untrained eye, I felt like the artistry was on point.
I would say so too. I'm curious to see what score flashes up for her and what her execution is going to look like.
But you love this part.
Look how beautiful this is. We have a couple form breaks, but no wobbles on that landing. Here we have an Anodi, that bottom foot. When she landed, her heel was on the beam, but her toes were not. And a lot of times during practice, if you're not careful, that foot will slip. Overall, I loved it.
The one thing I hate seeing, though, is she did the double fold, took a hop, kind of took a hop, and kind of took a step. If you're going to hop, make it one hop. Turn to the judge, but nonetheless, 2 for 2 hits for Michelle Pineda here as she finishes her second rotation. Want to get your kid into gymnastics? Go to thesportsengine.com/gymnastics today to find youth programs in your area. Sportsengine.com is the home of youth sports. Christina Shelton for that uneven bar routine. An 11.4.
So her execution being a 7.0. When we were watching her routine, we noticed lots of flex feet and lots of form breaks. And though that dismount was fantastic, the judges found a lot of places to take deductions off.
So again, fighting for that spot at championships, Michelle Pineda, she is in championships, 12.6 for that beam routine, flirting with the 8.0 in execution, Lori.
She's close. And listen, that 8.0 can be difficult to get, especially as a junior when you're making your way up. When you get nervous, you make those little mistakes, you stumble on the landing, you may have some feet separations. I think you're doing great this meet.
Audrey Snyder was second place in this session after one rotation. She started things off on the vault. Here she is on the uneven bars. We mentioned she went to Pan American Games. She went as the alternate, but then unfortunately her teammate was injured. She got the opportunity to go, and she finaled on this event right here, the uneven bars.
Wow. Huge height on that Tkachev. My jaw dropped a little bit. Slight feet separation. Overall, though, her toes are pointed, her legs are straight. Dismount. Bit of a hike down on that landing. We're seeing that 90-degree angle from the hip down to the legs. That is quite a bite into a deduction.
And I talked to some of the experts before the competition about the double layout on bars, and they actually said if you have too much pike, they're going to give you a double pike. Ooh. And not a double layout, which sounds brutal, and I think it is, but this was beautiful.
Oh. Foot separation on that pack salto, but the height of those releases. When we see wow factors, especially from the juniors, it's something to keep an eye out on for the next few years. Do not underestimate the juniors that are competing today. You may see a couple of their fresh faces keep popping up over and over as the clock continues.
Some smiles from Audrey Snyder. Audrey, interesting background. Her mom was a gymnast, but she also said her mom was a Ravens cheerleader as well, and she told us, she said she's already got a plan. She wants to be a real estate agent, she wants to be an interior designer, and she also wants to be a Ravens cheerleader. I said you should be a Vikings cheerleader myself, but...
She quickly brushed that off. I don't think she... Look, it's Tracy Snyder!
That's awesome.
That's a great photo.
I think the fun part about Audrey is she was just so matter-of-fact, especially for, you know, someone her age usually doesn't have her sights set that specifically, but she's like, here's what I want to do, including being a Ravens cheerleader. It's like she's cleaning off those hands with a little special something.
I was like, you know, that's really healthy to do after bars. I never did that.
My number still attached.
Because Lord knows, those hands, it's like men's parallel bars and men's high bar. They get chewed up, right?
The palms, you might as well touch a brick. That's those calluses. They get you.
There are the twin sisters, Audrey and Sydney Schneider. Audrey has qualified. Probably some words of encouragement for her sister, however, who is a rough rotation here on the even bar. She has some work to do. 11.05 for her routine earlier.
I hope she understands that she's still got 2 events left and that she can keep it moving.
12.3 for Audrey Snyder.
Good.
4.7, you see that 14-7 start. 7.6 out of 10 for that execution score.
Come on. Let's go, you got it. You got it.
5th place after the first rotation in this session was Simone Rose. We saw that outstanding bar routine. But maybe the coolest thing is talking to her coach and her before the competition. She's a nail artist, Lori. Have you heard of nail art before?
You know, I used to be obsessed with nail art when I was a junior too, so it makes me giggle to look at her. Wow.
And she did all this herself.
That is fantastic.
And that great smile. But here's the thing I asked her, I go, are you worried about damaging your investment when you go out on the floor and you do the beam and you do the bars? I mean, that's a lot of work to put at risk, but she didn't seem to worry about it.
I think she's quite comfortable with it. And I love that with a lot of especially the junior athletes that we talk to, they have so much that they do outside of gymnastics, and that wasn't a common thing that we've seen within, I'd say, the last decade. So to see Simone doing nails, to see the Snyder twins going out and boating together, because that's what they love to do, I love that they have that life outside of this. I think it'll allow their gymnastics to be even more vibrant when they come and they step foot into the gym.
Talking with Cale Robinson, Simone's coach, before the competition, he talked about the last 2 years for both he and for Simone and Jayla, her teammate, has really been kind of a whirlwind. They've made a huge jump. 2 years ago, they were level 9 gymnasts, and they've just had this consistent, kind of gritty, hard work, about 27 hours in the gym, which that's a job.
That's quite a chunk of time.
That is a job, but they have great joy in their craft, for sure.
Smooth connection for those three. One of the requirements for balance beam artistry is to essentially lay down on the beam. Slight wobble there. Handspring layout. That is not a common flight series that we see.
Nailed it.
She really did. The rhythm of her routine is really nice, and I don't think, little hiccup there, but I don't think in that category they would find too much.
She has a certain spring to her gymnastics. I like
She
this.
does.
That
Yeah.
you even saw it on bars, how quick and strong she is, and you definitely can see it here on beam.
Wow! Round up 2.5 twist to end the routine.
Very difficult dismount for Simone. And the nails still open.
Good job, girl. Way to get it done.
We've got switch leap, straddle jump, back tuck. Those 3 in a row are going to get her extra 10th bonus. Little bit of flexed feet here, but she was so solid on the landing, so sure of herself. That's what we like to see.
Here's what I want to see too. 2.5 twists. Watch her feet when she lands. Those feet have to finish completely, right, Lori? Or the judges are going to say, hey, that wasn't a 2.5. That was actually, we're going to give you a double.
Exactly. You can actually have your twist devalued. And that's on all 4 events. If you're doing a twisting vault, a twisting dismount on bars, and anything twisting on bars and on floor and beam. If you're a couple degrees short, they're going to pluck that from you.
And that is such a brutal rule because it can affect your start value in so many different ways.
And your execution. Not only if they pulled a 2.5 back and reversed it into a double full, she would get a deduction for over twisting.
But that one looked good. I
That
will
one
say
looked
that.
good.
That
That one
2.5
looked great.
looked like it was done the way it is supposed to be done.
Waiting on scores can be brutal. There's Nicole Desmond.
Comes from First State Gymnastics, and that is the program that awarded her 2017 World All-Around Champion. Came out of Nicole Desmond. Has qualified to the championships.
Fall on the Rikna. So we watched an athlete earlier fall on that Rikna, and Dan had mentioned she just had to grab the bar. For this one, what I noticed, she hung on too long. So she didn't even have her hands on the bar to grab it to begin with. That can be really difficult. Practice makes perfect. She'll get it. Oh, she was supposed to pirouette there. Bit of hesitancy from her bars, what we're noticing. And when you see that hesitancy, she's going to get a rhythm deduction for that. Coming towards the dismount now.
Oh, man.
That's going to be quite the deduction.
And I think that's
Over a point.
that's one that Nicole's going to want to chalk up for experience. Did not go the way she wanted, which is too bad. She's got some great swing and some great skills.
So here, hung on too long, hands barely touched her fingertips to the bar. It's quite the disappointing feeling when you feel it happen mid-routine, especially when you're competing.
And
But again, she's going to get that. Here we have her fall on the dismount.
It just looked like the knees got away from her because it was a good double pike. And you can see there's dowels in those grips. As a gymnast, if you don't get the dowel over the bar on the release, you're not going to catch it. So if it's just the tips of those fingers, you know, it's a painful feeling to see that bar slip away, and we've all been there, right?
Yes, absolutely, we all have. got to keep an eye out on those falls. Unfortunately, what we see often in these routines is the domino effect. You have one fall, and then you start making little mistakes and possibly have another. It's all about the mental, especially when you're competing. Being mentally strong. That's where it's at.
So that is going to do it for a rotation, too. We'll give you all the leaders in the standings when we come back. We are back. Rotation 2 is complete, and here are your leaders. Jayla Hang having an outstanding day, currently has the lead. Now keep in mind, these are your leaders from just this session. They will combine them from the session last night, but Yasmin Jimenez is the highest scoring gymnast so far that is trying to qualify to championships. Keep in mind, a 49.5 is the score they're chasing to keep their summer of competition alive. But now we're going to see some floor exercise for the first time, Lori.
Yes.
What are we looking for?
What to look out for? Of course, what we see on the screen, big tumbling, stuck landing, stay in bounds, but artistry. I want to break that down for just a few seconds. We're looking at posture, expression, matching the style of music, and of course, true performance. That's what we like to see. But they are going to nitpick at that, especially within this quad. They've changed the rules. Artistry truly matters.
You know, there's been some talk about this artistry deduction and talking to some different people close to the sport. Some people almost feel like it's an American rule because we have dominated the difficulty on floor with Jake Carey and Simone Biles most notably.
Yeah.
And they're trying to put this more emphasis on artistry and maybe take away a little of the emphasis on difficulty. Do you have thoughts on that?
I have mixed feelings. I think I need to see a little bit more in results in terms of all the competitions that are coming up within the next few years to fully form an opinion. But my gut instinct is if that means we trigger a lot more artistry in the sense of character in floor routines, it may be worth it.
Carly Weinberg starts things off here on floor.
Stepping out of bounds, first pass. She's got a lot of power there. Something you want to look out for when you're watching floor routines is that a lot of times the athletes have so much adrenaline, they put all of that energy into their tumbling, and we'll see lots of stumbles out, lots of hops out, and especially lots of steps out of bounds. That was a cool transition. Switch ring to Thursday half. They are hammering down on leaps and jumps as well. That switch ring, your back foot has to be above your head. Double tuck, third pass. It looked like that back foot may have stepped out of bounds, but either way, that is going to be about a 3/10 deduction. Those hops on that turn. Overall, a powerful routine. Lots of mistakes in between, though. And I think the judges are going to find quite a few spots to pluck from that.
So on USA Championships watch, as we look at our first pass again, Lori, what happened here?
So that double pike, first off, she landed with her chest facing the floor, which is going to be quite the deduction. Obviously, she went out of bounds. We have her third pass here. Double tuck, we've got that leg separation, and she did unfortunately go out of bounds again.
I mentioned USA Championships watch for Carly Weinberg. She's trying to advance. She had a 23.45 after 2 rotations. To be on pace to make it to the USA Championship, she would have needed a 24.75. So some work to do, and with those mistakes and those out of bounds, it's going to be an uphill battle. She heads into that last rotation, I'm expecting, but what I love is the positivity and the smiles on the sideline.
Yes, at the end of the day, you have to hold optimism for all the best results to come, and I hope she's doing that. Yeah, as many mistakes as were made, she has a lot of potential in her tumbling. And another thing to look out for, especially in reference to that first pass, that out-of-bounds hop, an athlete wants to absorb the landing, if you will, like a sponge with water. You want to land on bent legs. You want to be able to absorb the bounce of the floor. If you're too tight when you land, you're going to bounce like a jelly bean all over the place, and that can be really tough to reel back in when it starts.
Well, and the thing about the floor, too, is, and I don't want to be the back in my day guy, but it's only gotten springier. You know, you go up there, and I bounced on the floor recently, and I'm thinking to myself, man, maybe a comeback's in order. I mean, the floor is incredibly bouncy. As the difficulty goes up, so does the spring of that floor, but it makes it great to go up in the air and get airtime, but it makes it harder to land.
Yes, it makes it harder to absorb that landing. We see a 7.2 in execution. That is a bit low.
And that 11.75 again. We talked about the average of a 12.375 to get to championships. That may not be in the cards, unfortunately, for Carly Weinberg here today, but nonetheless, you can see a lot of bright spots. Christina Shelton, our next gymnast to go on the balance beam. She was in a good position after 2 events. We saw her on the even bar. She sits at a 24.15, so a little below that average of a 24.75. But 2 events here where she just needs to get into those mid to high 12s.
Strong with the back handspring back layout flight series. Bit of a broken connection there. I'm noticing a lot of form breaks in the sense that her feet are not all the way pointed. So unfortunately, she will get quite a few deductions there. Little wobbles, but she looks strong. That is a jump we don't see often in terms of a straddle jump landing. No turning, just on that same side of the beam. Remember, folks, the beam is only 4 inches wide.
Big double back.
Quite a few steps on that landing, but it's always great to see double backs, 2.5 twists when you're exiting the beam, when you're dismounting. Gonna get some bonus points for that.
Christina from just down the road from where I live in Knoxville, Tennessee. She's at Top Notch Training Center in Marietta, Georgia.
It's those little bobbles, those shoulder shakes, all of that is going to add up in the end. Right here. That's a tough jump. You don't have anywhere in the beam to spot. So you're using spidey senses a bit, that 6th sense on where the beam is beneath you. Bit of a stumble at the end of that landing, but again, round of double back. You gotta love a high start value dismount.
Spidey sense. Really? Is that like a rotation? You've trained this spidey sense? Is this something you're not telling me that I need to know about?
Honestly, I gotta say, when I was doing beam, it really felt like a spidey sense or a 6th sense when you get those blind landings. And we'll see this a lot in the senior competition. Doing front flips, ring jumps, where you can't spot where the beam is when you land. You have to feel it.
I think blind landing and balance being good. I think give you the cold sweats. Like I tip my hat to you afterwards. It's impressive.
By the way, if you came back, I'm fully supportive. Just thought you should know.
Well, thank you. You would be the only one that would support that because that is a bad idea.
I don't know. When the equipment calls, you answer. So you tell me.
Christina, 8th place in this session after 2 rotations. There's 8 athletes in this session that are trying to get that 49.5, that elusive 49.5 to qualify to championships. Put that in perspective. There were 6 gymnasts from section 1 of this competition that scored a 49.5 or better. But the ironic part is all 6 of those gymnasts had already qualified. So there was actually no athletes, as we see here, 11.55. No athletes that were trying to qualify in that first session that actually got the score. So it's not easy.
It's It's not easy.
Third place in this session after 2 rotations was Audrey Snyder, and you can see a little bit of what some of the coaches here on the floor saw in Audrey. She has got all the tools to be an outstanding gymnast.
So far, her rhythm is really nice. One thing just flows right into the other. Little wobble on that triple series, but that is a difficult series. Nice height on the side aerial. Another deduction that can be found, if we're seeing acro skills that are too low to the beam, you're gonna get a height deduction. Hers look great. She looks very comfortable up there. No connection breaks, beautiful form.
Dan Baker, who was up with us earlier, said that Audrey was the only gymnast at the Pan American Championships recently that didn't get deductions for artistry on her leaps on balance beam. And you can see a little bit of the difference between what she does and some of the other gymnasts. It's quite impressive.
That was a fantastic beam routine for Audrey Snyder.
Why doesn't she look as happy as we think she should look? She's got that serious look on her face. That looked amazing.
I also thought that was amazing. I hope she did too. But I suppose we'll find out. We have her triple series here, one of the very few, if any, things that she wobbled on in this routine.
And talk about these leaps right here and the difference and why these are so good.
So we see that full extension. When you see a split, especially front to back, we like that 180-degree angle. We want a full line from your toes to your hips to your back foot. If we see a straight line, that is definitely a green light. That's a good sign. And for all of her leaps, we saw great form. She looked comfortable up there.
There's the smile.
Yay!
Write that name in your notebook, gymnastics fans at home. Audrey Snyder is definitely one to keep an eye on. Simone Rose on the sidelines, always great camaraderie.
So that straight line that I had mentioned earlier, we see her fully extended in this leap.
Wow.
That was not my best straight line, I gotta be honest. But
Good enough, Lori, good enough.
You can see where I'm angling at. This is the perfect split jump, in my opinion. That is what every gymnast should strive to do every time they do a leap, a jump, whether that's on beam or floor.
And I think, again, fans at home, as you're starting to gain knowledge about the sport of gymnastics, things like that, you can now watch at home and see what Lori is just talking about and start to formulate your own score. That's what we all love to do, right, in sports, is get our own opinion and see if we can nail it.
Everyone at home, it's like watching the Met Gala and critiquing dresses, even though nobody at home knows very much about fashion.
My favorite hobby, actually, critiquing dresses at the Met Gala. I'm gonna stick to whether that was a holding call for my Minnesota Vikings or not. That's gonna be my area.
Oh my goodness. Here though, when you get those guidelines on how to judge a routine, especially when you're at home, it really does become entertaining. And you start finding athletes that stick out to you. And if they stick out to you, keep their names in mind. Keep up for what competitions they do next. Because over time, we only get better.
Well, I think that's one thing in the sport of gymnastics that we don't get as much as we get in some other sports. Is we love to be the greatest critic on our couch, right?
Yes.
And so I would love to see you guys at home watching, get out a pad of paper and make your own score. And maybe you don't know the difficulty, you can't come up with that, but come up with your own execution score.
And see if it aligns.
Yeah, see where you fall. I'll tell you what, I'm usually wrong. So it's not easy.
And especially with our own commentary and what aligns with the scores that we see after the routines that are done, all of it can be subjective, and that's where artistry comes in again. When we see them hammering down, and by them I mean the judges, hammering down on artistry, they have a checklist now for what that looks like. So even though it may seem subjective, there are rules for what needs to be done.
Still waiting for the Audrey Snyder score. And
do you remember the wait before competitions?
oh, it's the worst. And Jasmine Jimenez is up there on the podium. And talk about that, because I think it's important as an athlete. I always had a routine before the routine.
Yes.
And I always mentally timed it out to be, ready to go when the green flag was ready. Now she's been up there for quite some time waiting. How hard is that?
She has. I was constantly doing mental routines before the routine even starts, but that waiting period right before you hop up on the equipment, it can be really nerve-wracking. And I mean, for me personally, that was literally the worst part about the competition. But as soon as I saluted and I was on the equipment, it felt like home again. I understood why I was doing it. I think a lot of these athletes possibly feel the same. The right before is where they get you.
Yeah, our version of beam was generally pommel horse, and
Yeah.
I remember being at a national championships one year, and I felt like I had to wait forever.
Yeah.
And I got up, and it was a disaster. It was a learning experience, let's put it that way. So Audrey Snyder, very nice, 13.35 in the hunt to win the U.S. Classic. Again, we'll bring in the scores from the first session as well as we get into the final rotation, but she is trying to make a run at the title. Now, finally, she gets her chance. Jasmine Jimenez, she was 4th place in the all-around in this session after the second rotation. Oh, and that was a big save. Wow.
I think my heart just fell out of my body a little bit. That was a fantastic save. Obviously, her foot was supposed to catch the beam there. She caught it with her knee instead. Beautiful fight series. Okay, bit of a wobble on that front aerial. When we see these aerial skills, those flight series, handspring layouts, side aerials, front aerials, you want your hips to be in line with the beam. If they turn to the side, we're gonna see quite a bit of a wobble. It can be hard to reel back when it starts.
And just to put her meet so far in perspective, she is trying to qualify. She had a 25.25 after the second rotation. That is above the pace she needs to qualify to championships. That save on the Wolf turn might be the difference. One event to go, but that is a critical moment for Jasmine.
I have to commend her for that. And honestly, there's a huge handful of athletes who would have just fallen right off. Rightfully so. But there is a fighting drive within her. I see it, and I'm sure she sees it in herself too. Finishing strong with a double full.
Great poise, my goodness. The first skill, you almost have a fall, but she keeps it together. Jasmine Jimenez keeping her USA Championships hopes alive. We'll see her score when we come back. Midway through the third rotation here in Salt Lake City at the U.S. Classic. Our first look at Khalees Wolford getting ready to go on the floor exercise. She has qualified to the U.S. Championships. Currently, after 2 rotations, sits in the 10th position out of these athletes in this session.
From New Jersey.
11.3 on bars and a 12.55 on the balance beam.
Didn't mean to cut you off there,
No,
but
please,
a
by all
fellow
means.
Jerseyan. When do we see one of those?
You love competing on floor, Lori. Yeah, everybody can see it. You know, talk about what she's thinking right now. You're on the edge of the floor. What are you telling yourself? How do you get yourself in the right state of mind to do a good floor routine?
Honestly, every athlete is different. Some girls don't like competing floor, but for me, as soon as the music turned on, it was a different person. It wasn't me anymore. It was just performance, connecting with the crowd. So let's see how she does. I like her artistry so far, and she's just started. Double tuck first pass, small hop. It's clean, we like that. Simple front layout, front pike to assist zone. Second pass, but there's something to be said for doing a clean routine. Switch ring. I want everyone to watch her dance, her artistry. Every time you hear artistry, this is typically what we mean. Her dance, her expression matches the style of music. Nice 2.5 third pass. We see her flash a bright smile there.
Definitely made that full 2.5 twist around. We talked about that on beam earlier. So critical.
Always a joy to see when the gymnasts are truly enjoying their floor routine. Ooh, broke the fourth wall there.
What?
She broke the. She looked into the camera.
I love it. Well done. And Khalees Wolford, she said her goals to make the 2024 and the 2028 Olympics, and you just never know who you might see here at the U.S. Classic that might do just that. Lacey Saltzman, one of those athletes trying to make it to that next round. After 2 rotations, she had a 24.45 here at this competition, 0.3 below what you need to be on average to get that score. So it needs to make a little bit of ground up, needs to score higher than a 12.375 here.
I like that intro. I feel like,
oh, and that is
wow.
an amazing sequence.
Unique flight series for the handspring front tuck. Again, we don't see that often. But as mentioned before, I feel that from Kim Zemeskel, we see all these really interesting intros for the starts of beam. And though they may look a little exhausting, they make the athlete stand out, and that's really important. Whew, jump full turn. What I would call a blind landing. You can't spot the beam when you land.
Every 10th critical for Lacey Saltzman trying to get to that USA Championships.
Lots of little bobbles here and there. I think that may be a testament to her nerves. But let's see her staple this with a dismount. Oh! Yes! Oh, the sucker for a stuck dismount. There's so much pride in that.
Lacey and Kim Zemeskel waiting for that score, and the score is a 12.2. Giving herself maybe some hope. One event to go for Lacey, and that will be the floor exercise. She's going to need a big routine there to advance to the U.S. Championships. Maybe Kim Zemeskel doing some math there. We're gonna call that math on the calculator.
Math or selfies, you know. No, I'm kidding. Definitely math.
And now Nicole Desmond, she had a rough go of it on the uneven bars, but she is qualified. Trying to rebound here on the balance move.
Wobble on that side aerial.
New sequence, I believe, right here.
Oh, almost hung on there.
Wow, what a fight, but unfortunately for Nicole, the troubles continue here on beam.
Granted, I would not be surprised if she saw that coming as she was upside down. Watching can sometimes be a bit more stressful than actually doing it, but for her, she's seeing where the beam is and where her foot is going to land. Nails that front aerial, keeps the routine moving. That's what we like to see. Sometimes you just got to watch the fall from your brain, pretend it never happened. Keep doing the routine like you do in practice. That's what she's doing here. Deep breath right before the dismount. Finishes with a beautiful handspring double back. That is going to be a 3/10 deduction on the landing, though. That step was past her shoulder width.
And again, for Nicole at this competition, it is a practice meet, trying some new skills like that sequence right there. actually only doing 2 events here today in this competition.
So watch her foot on this lip right here. We saw her toes catch before the rest of her foot, and when that happens,
Your life
granite
flashes
just-
before your eyes.
yeah.
My goodness.
There's a slide off that happens, and she tried to catch herself. This was a really nice dismount, though. The height on that is to be commended for.
Disappointing day for her, no doubt, but I will tell you what, she has outstanding gymnastics. We saw great gymnastics on bars as well. It didn't go as she wanted. Again here, putting some difficulty in, and you hope, chalk it up for experience, learn from it, and rebound at the U.S. Championships.
Taking lots of deep breaths over here, possibly even a little emotional, understandably so. When falls like that happen during competition, they don't just, scare the viewers, it scares her too. And it hurts a bit. And even though she may be discouraged, I hope she keeps the fire going and she keeps it moving, because these are some high difficulty skills that she's trying out at Classics.
I'm going to tell you what I love about the sport of gymnastics. There's no defense in gymnastics. And,
Yeah.
And so you're really competing against yourself. And look at the athletes coming over to her, giving a pat on the back and just giving her support. They're competing against each other, but they know how tough this sport is. It's like a family.
Yeah, the support system is everything, and especially when you're competing with people over and over again, they start to become your friends naturally. So after something like that, the support is so important. It's always so nerve-wracking to have the camera on you after a fall like that.
Taylor McMahon from Texas Dreams next to go up on the balance beam.
Now on floor for Eckerlex, Nathan Chandler.
Nicole got 11.45 for that beam routine. Really, that's actually still a very good score despite the troubles that she had.
From the average of scores that we've seen within this competition, that was still pretty good. Once again, unique beam mount from Texas Dreams. Beautiful triple wolf turn. I love the extension of her legs. Watch her form. I feel that she's going to have great form this entire routine. So look for that. Handsome layout. Small shuffle, but overall, she's moving. Quite safe on that front aerial. See a little bit of shuffles and bobbles, though. That is going to cost her a couple times.
Just doing the rough math for Taylor. She needs to average over a 13 on these last 2 events. I do have to say this beam routine looks outstanding, but keep in mind too, Audrey Snyder, who crushed her beam routine, went 13.35, so getting over a 13, not easy to do.
She's fantastic with her connections, though. We see one skill flow right into the other with no breaks. I really do think she would get credit for those, and she'll get some bonus points for that too. Here's her dismount.
Gotta stick it.
Double full landing, large step back, but she's smiling. I would be too. Oh, she did a little fist bump. I love that.
Teasing the fist bump. She told us when we talked to her before the meet, she said, my mom didn't want me to do gymnastics. Her mom did gymnastics herself, but she said, my grandma took me to mommy and me, and that is how she got in the sport. I gotta think mom's smiling now, though, right?
I think so. And when you fall in love with gymnastics that early on, there's something really special before it even starts.
Here's the mount you loved, Lori.
I'm sure everyone watching knows how difficult that is to do, but I feel the need to verbalize how difficult that is to do. Look at that pointed toe and the extension in her legs. I think Kim would be very proud of that. Look at the height. I liked this routine. Can you tell? I'm curious to know what score they give her, what her execution will get deducted for.
The highest score so far on beam was a 13.65. That was from last night. The highest score today on beam was Audrey Snyder's, we mentioned, a 13.35. Only 4 scores so far between night 1 and today have gone over a 13. I'm going to put you on the spot because I like to make you judge the routine, Lori. Is this going to break a 13?
I gotta say, personally, I have my fingers crossed that she does. Selfishly, I liked that routine. I love the style. I love the flow. And I think the difficulty and the connections were up there. I think she could do it.
Am I the only one that realized that you just avoided actually answering the question?
John, I have no idea what she's gonna score. I think she will, but also sometimes I am unfortunately very wrong.
I think she had the 13, except for that big step in the landing. I think the landing might be the difference. We'll see.
So I'm gonna put my hand down on a high 12.
Okay.
Which is still obviously a fantastic score.
Come on, Sid. You got it, Sid.
Other scores. Jasmine Jimenez, 11.75. You see Kelsey on floor, 12.65. Jayla Hang, standing gymnast today, 12.75 for her. And there is Lacey Saltzman, who's also trying to get into that championship. She is flirting on the edge, 12.2 for her. And I'm just going to give ourselves a pat on the back here because I think we're going to see this score come up. And I think you and I might have actually nailed this one.
Yes! That feels good. I gotta say the validation for...
There it is, 12.9.
Our eyes do not deceive us, John.
I'm just going to stop predicting scores from now on after that. I'm just going to call that a retirement.
She should be very proud of that 12.9.
Sydney Steiner now. Next to go on the balance beam. Also has some work to do. We saw that mistake she had on the uneven bar. Started off great on vault with a 13.05. It has to hit high 12s minimum. Give herself a chance. 24-1 after 2 rotations.
Look at her toe point. She has a ballerina-style toe point, something that we'd see similar to Nastia Lukin. That arch in the center of her foot, that's a great sign, especially if it's straight down from your shin. Little bobbled, little step out of that series. Lots of power, though.
She was honest with us before the competition. She said, I feel the pressure. This is her last chance to qualify to championships. But she said, she tries not to think about it. Focus on your gymnastics.
Taking a nice deep breath before the dismount. We hear that bell ding, telling her she's got 10 seconds to get off.
This has been a great routine. Gotta finish clean, though.
Tight double full. Small hop on the landing.
Going to be very interesting to watch Sydney as she goes to floor for her last event at 24-1, about 6.5 tenths behind the pace to qualify.
Her feet land all the way around. She's going to get credit for that double full, and that is high five worthy.
Sydney trying to make the dream come true. Her sister Audrey in the lead after 3. So standings after the 3rd rotation, just from this session, we'll combine, we'll let you know what it's going to take to win overall. But Audrey Snyder having a great day, 38.5. Right behind her, though, Jayla Hang. She is going to finish on the vault. She's only 2 tenths behind. It seems like those two are the ones that have a chance to maybe catch the leader from the first session, Hesley Rivera.
38.5 is a great place to be after 3 rotations, especially in a junior competition.
There is Audrey Snyder. She will be the lead-off gymnast to go on the floor exercise. Her sister, Sydney Schneider, on the balance beam. Lori, and this is big, only a 12.15. I felt like it was going to be a little higher. It looked good to me.
Just goes back to those little deductions, I think, especially in artistry, that the judges can find. And
yeah.
off.
And I think where it made the most difference is her difficulty was a 4.4. So she starts from a 14.4. She actually had a 7.75 in execution, which is a very
pretty good, yeah.
execution score. Just needs to add a little bit more difficulty. But now, here is her sister, Audrey Snyder, to catch Hesley Rivera, the winner of the first session. In the all-around, she needs a 13.6. That is a big number. What a start.
That was stunning. Beautiful form on a piked full in. We don't see those too often. She's got a lot of power and control in her. Her lines and her wrists remind me a bit of Riley McCusker and her artistry on the floor. Bit of a stumble on that landing. I think she also knew that. Her extension is stunning.
To put in perspective how hard a 13.6 is going to be for Audrey, no one between day one and today has scored higher than a 13.25. A big ask for Audrey Snyder.
Clean double back. She has a lot of control in her tumbling that I'm noticing, which a lot of times in the junior division, you'll notice some stumbles, out of bounds. That control is something that can be very hard to pick up on. But she's got it.
Her first and only international assignment was just a few weeks ago, the Pan American Championships. First place team in the junior division, 5th on the uneven bars, but I'll tell you what, that is not going to be her last international assignment. Bright future for this young athlete.
Her stunning piked full in here. Look at that leg extension.
Love
that was
it.
a 1/10 hop. And we've got her double back here. Once again, 1/10 hop.
The Snyder sisters said they hate watching each other do gymnastics. I know the feeling. I watched my sister do gymnastics, and it was nerve-wracking, but as much as they support each other, it's hard to watch them.
I believe one turns around while the other goes, just because they can also just get so anxious watching each other, which I find really.
Sydney Snyder will be in the second half of this fourth and final rotation. She will actually be the leadoff gymnast there. And we'll let you know what she's going to need to do to get that magical qualifying score. Catherine Jimenez will be the next gymnast to go on the side. She is trying to qualify, just needs a 12.5. I say just, because that is also not an automatic. We look at the standings so far, and you're tied for 7th right now with a 12.5 on the Florida side. So it's not a gimme. She's got to be clean. She's got to be clean in the execution, land on her feet, avoid those extra steps.
She has the capacity to do so. So let's see what she does. Beautiful double pike, very clean first pass, straight legs, pointed toes, clean landing. So far, her leaps, jumps, and turns all are very clean. I think she's going to get credit for those. Punch front. Small hop on the landing, but overall clean. I think she can get that score she needs. Very nice for a handspring front full. Last pass.
The pressure was on, and Jasmine did her job. She went out and hit her routine as clean as she can do it. It's out of her hands now, Lori. It's in the hands of the judges.
And now I turn to you. What score do you think she would get?
Oh, man, you would do this to me.
Oh, yeah,
And there you can see it needs a 12.5 to qualify to the U.S. Championships.
I think she's got it. I think she can get a 12.5.
It's going to be tough. I don't know. She was very clean. I think it's going to come down to what do the judges do on that artistry, on those leaps and turns. We're going to tease you because we're going to find out when we come back. Welcome back, Jasmine Jimenez. She needed a 12.5 for that floor routine. We talked in the break. We weren't sure she was going to get it. She did not. Unfortunately, it was a 12.1, just 0.4 away from that qualifying score. But man, what a great fight for her. We saw her on balance being a great fight there. Some great gymnastics, and certainly some great gymnastics yet to come for that athlete. But Jayla Hang, moments ago, she was coming up on the vault. She needed a 13.8 to win the overall competition. That means today's competition as well as last night's competition. 13.8 or better gets it done. She goes to vault, one of her best events, one of the few athletes in this competition to do a Yurchenko double full, which is a 15.0 start value. A huge advantage on that event if you can do it. Here's what happened.
Great height.
Wow.
Quite the step back on the landing, but it was beautiful. She had height. She was tight when she hit the horse.
Coaches love it. Stephanie Gentry there, a Woga gymnast.
And she
on
gets
the left,
it.
and she absolutely knocked it out of the park. A 14.15. That's the highest score on vault in this entire junior competition, and that is enough to get Jayla Hang the all-around title. Congratulations. Some great young athletes in this competition. That is another one to keep an eye on.
Woohoo! And what a high execution score. It's always a joy to see anywhere between a 9 up, you know? Not something you see often, so good for her. Huge congratulations.
Jayla's dad, Tom, is actually a professional poker player, believe it or not. Not a job description you hear too often, and apparently quite good at it. Been in the World Series of Poker, and quite impressive.
Now on floor for Texas Rangers, Taylor McMahon.
Taylor McMahon finishing up her competition here on floor exercise. He's a 13.55 here to make it to championships. We talked about how hard that score is. Honestly, not probably realistic, but nonetheless, wants to finish with an exclamation point.
Bit of a low chest on that landing. That was a stunning leap, though. Artistry truly matches the music. I don't think they can take much off in that department. 2.5, I believe it was all the way around. Quite the stumble out of the turn. That's going to be a couple tenths off.
Wolf turn, they're going to get her for that.
There's a possibility that could be counted as a fall, but we'll see. Stunning last pass.
Taylor McMahon finishing her meet on floor exercise. Smiles from her start to finish. Kim Zanesko talks about her just being one of those athletes that will face the challenges, won't avoid the things that she needs to work on. Taylor says they really trust Kim. She's been there, she's done that, and they love the relationship that they have. We've got a little more gymnastics. We're going to finish up up this fourth and final rotation. We'll tell you who makes championships. Second half of the final rotation here in Salt Lake City. John Roethlisberger, Lori Hernandez, Sydney Snyder, hoping to make it to the U.S. Championships. This is her last shot. It's going to be need to be a big routine. He's a 13.25.
When we chatted with her before the competition, she mentioned that she did a triple full at one meet and did not get credit for it because she didn't finish all the way around. She wants to try again here.
Made it around. Little dip in the knees, though. She's basically going to have to win the floor exercise event to advance to the U.S. Championships.
Bit fidgeting in the corner. 2.5 punch front. Nice save there. If you get even just a little bit loose in those twisting connections to acro, you can come into some trouble, but she stuck with it. I like this music. Double tuck last pass. She takes a few steps out of it, but the height was there.
Nice finish for Sydney Snyder. I don't believe that is going to put her into the U.S. Championships, but nonetheless, what an effort from her and her sister. A great duo, great team out here on the floor, and certainly a bright future for that young athlete as well.
We saw a lot of great, pretty high difficulty skills from her in this competition.
You think her sister watched?
Possibly not, from what it sounds like. I think they get too nervous to watch each other. We're waiting for her score, but here we have Peyton Chandler.
Peyton needs a 12.35 to qualify. She vaulted moments ago. Will it be enough?
Beautiful height, chest down on the landing. Bit of a step, but I still think she can get that score.
And I'm going to predict she does, because that was a replay, and she did a 12.8. That Yurchenko laid out full, starts at a 14. She gets enough, and she will see you in Tampa.
Woohoo!
At the U.S. Championships. Congratulations, Peyton.
Huge congratulations. What an accomplishment to make it to championships. I think she's excited. Look at that smile. Aw. I may have just accidentally waved back to the camera.
We talked about Lacey's Salzman a lot during this competition. She was trying to make a push here late to get herself to that championships as well. Needed a 12.85 for her floor team, unfortunately a 12.55. A few tenths short. Lori, you mentioned that break at your U.S. Classics when you made it to the U.S. Championships. It came right down the wire too, right?
It did. I finished on vault, and I can't remember the exact score I needed. I think it was anywhere around a 12.3, and I got the exact score. Lucky duck.
Annabelle Dewey from ETC Gymnastics, our first look at her today. Comes out of Mount Juliet, Tennessee.
Starts off with a huge double Arabian. Quite the deduction on the landing, but that's one way to start your routine with a wow factor pass.
Wow, she can tumble.
She's got power in those legs, and she's using them.
Unfortunately for Annabelle, she was trying to qualify to championships. Will not that needs a 15.6 here on floor, which would be over 2 points higher than the next highest score, but nonetheless, coming out strong with some big-time gymnastics.
Incredible third pass. She's got some high difficulty tumbling. Always exciting to see this from a junior. Definitely someone to keep your eye out on in the next few years. Last pass. Finishes strong with a double tuck. It's a jam-packed routine.
You can have at most 4 acro tumbling passes in women's gymnastics. She did 4. All 4 had double flipping skills in them, especially at the junior level. You don't see that too often.
And she met all her requirements between the double Arabian, her finishing forwards with the front pass. We have a full twist requirement, her second pass, a full in.
Look at this opening pass again. She does go out of bounds, but what power.
Oh. She could have done a punch front out of that.
She needs to do the alley raisman right there.
I was just about to say, she's got to pull an alley. Every time I talk to Allie, the phone call usually starts with, you know your first pass was 7 seconds long, right? And she just starts laughing. And I'm like, no, but have you counted? And she's like, you have to let this go. And I'm like, I can't.
High fives all around for Annabelle Dewey. Sydney Snyder, 11.35, so not meant to be today.
Get it, Christina.
For Sydney Snyder.
She's got that 6.5 in execution, which is quite low.
Again, we talked about 8.0 as a great execution score, anywhere in the 8s. She has her boating license, though. Did you know that?
You know what? I did know that, only because they mentioned that they like to take each other boating and tubing.
And Audrey apparently trusts her sister Sydney to drive the boat while she's tubing behind it, which I don't know if I would have that much faith, as we see Christina Shelton finishing her competition here on floor exercise out of top-notch gymnastics. A 13.8 here. Get her to championships. Again, by now you know a 13.8. I don't want to say impossible, but very, very tough score to get here.
Cleaned up double pike, first pass, but those steps are gonna get ya. She is a powerful tumbler. Wow. The air time that she has, even just on her leaps. If you stay tight on that floor, the floor is there to help you gain that height, and she's using it when she tumbles. Quite a big landing deduction, but again, her height. Landing deduction on that turn. She is a powerhouse. Unfortunately, I do think we're going to see some of those landings come up in her execution score.
Nice finish and nice competition from Christina Shelton. That is going to finish up. We're not quite done here, but I do want to say congratulations to Jayla Hang. She is your winner of the junior all-around competition in the combined event. She had the highest score. Peyton Chandler, by the way, the only athlete to qualify from either session for the U.S. Championship. The 2022 U.S. Classic is brought to you by UFOS Recovery Footwear. Feel the ooh. By Prevagen. Prevagen is the #1 pharmacist recommended memory support brand. And by Angie. Angie's List is now Angie, for home projects big and small. Get the Angie app today. Your winner in the all-around competition between both sessions, she moved ahead of Hesley Rivera. Jayla Hang, she gets it done, puts up a 52.8 out of all the competitors between both sessions that hadn't qualified for USA Championships, that were trying to qualify for USA Championships. Peyton Chandler is the only one to do it, and we are joined by both of those athletes right now. Congratulations, you guys, on a great competition. Jayla, let's start with you. I just want to read these names that you have joined the company of Simone Biles, Jordan Weaver, and Kyla Ross as winners of the U.S. Classic. What does this win mean to you?
It means a lot to me. I've improved so much from my last competition, and I'm so thankful for it.
That's so exciting. We were watching the entire time, just honestly in awe of both of you. For a junior competition, you both had some wow factor to you. How does it feel to do so well at such a prestigious competition like Classics?
It feels amazing. I'm just so thankful for all of it. Yes, amazing.
So Peyton, real quick to you, you needed a 12.35 on that vault to qualify to U.S. Championships. Did you know that? Did you feel the pressure? Did you think you had a chance at the end?
Yes, I did know that. I thought I had a good shot, but was definitely nervous.
Was there a point at any time in the competition where you thought, oh boy, I'm not too sure about this? Or did you feel confident the whole time?
I felt pretty confident. It was definitely just amazing to just be here, and I was excited because I had just qualified, so.
Fantastic.
So congratulations to both of you guys. Jayla, congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
Peyton, congratulations on qualifying to the U.S. Championships. We'll have eyes on you guys in just over a month in Tampa. Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay.
That is going to do it here for the U.S. Classic Junior Session. We'll be back in a few hours for the senior women's event. Coverage begins at 7 Eastern here on CNBC. The men's event will get underway tomorrow. Coverage begins at 3 p.m. Eastern on CNBC. And the top U.S. gymnasts will be back in action for the 2022 U.S. Gymnastics Championships in Tampa, August 18th through the 21st on NBC and CNBC and Peacock. For Lori Hernandez, I'm John Roethlisberger. See you in a few hours. So long from the junior session.
Woohoo!